Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back. Welcome to the Firefighters podcast. How have you been? Hope you're good. I hope you're keeping well. Hope you're kicking ass. Hope you're taking names. Hope you're ready for today's guest. Today we are jumping across the pond once more. Hell of a jump, this one. Speaking with Jason Patton of Fire Department Chronicles. Jason is the owner of Department Coffee based in Florida. And as I've already referenced, he is the host and main contributor to Fire Department Chronicles. Now, if you check out their website, their Instagram page, this dude is electric. He is such an exciting, gregarious, interesting guy. And I loved today's conversation. You really, really do not want to miss this one. Jason's been an operational EMT and firefighter for over 13 years now, and he has a massive breadth of experience. One of the things I love most about Jason, if you go over to their platform, you'll see this, how he's able to inject that humor into the day-to-day life of a frontline worker. Now, anybody that's listening that's an operational crew member will know we go into some hairy situations, and sometimes logic, common sense can go out of the window, and it's so important to keep our head on a swivel, and sometimes things get really serious. But as you're going to see on some of Jason's platforms, he has an innate ability to poke fun and humor at some of the shows, films out there that sometimes have a serious lapse of common sense and reality of what is involved to be a frontline worker, what is involved to be a firefighter or police officer, somebody that's actually out there, boots on the ground, kicking ass, taking names and getting it done. Now, before we get started, let's hear it for our good friends over at William Wood Watches. Johnny and the team have been working hard, creating some of the most overwhelmingly beautiful watches as they continue to become the leading British watch brand that upcycles rescue service materials. Let's not forget, they also give a hell of a lot back to the international firefighting charities, as well as the firefighter charity right here in the UK. Head over to williamwoodwatches.com to find out more about the business, the history of William Wood. Literally, as I stand in front of you today, I've got my Valiant Collection watch on with the red strap, loving it, feeling ready to go out there, kick ass and take names with the pulse of the fire service right there on my wrist. So if you, like me, love the fire service, love the emergency services, and want to be part of a brand that is giving money to the firefighters charities every single time somebody gets their hands on one of these beautiful timepieces, then head over to williamwoodwatches.com right now. Pause the podcast, head over there, williamwoodwatches.com. This episode is also sponsored by Venari Group, the specialists in vehicle building. More specifically, our emergency services vehicles on the front line every single day. So whether it's ambulances, fire appliances, healthcare, equipment, you know what we're like in the emergency services with our toys. And Venari are at the absolute forefront of technology and innovation when it comes to bringing that British manufacturing mastery to the forefront. In February this year, they proudly announced the exciting partnership with Ford to release a technologically advanced lightweight 3.5-ton ambulance known as Project Siren. Yes, that sounds bloody good, doesn't it? Venari have gone to the front line, got the feedback, got the information from the boys and girls. What do they need? How do they need it? And they have made this stunning new vehicle, fit for purpose, fit for the end user. So a big thanks to Wes, Oliver and James for bringing together their work ethic, desire and skill set to benefit all of our frontline emergency workers, giving them the tools for the job every single day. Now, in today's episode, you're also going to hear us change gears. Jason blew my mind when I first saw a video of him sharing some very powerful words of self-reflection when it comes to mental health, both his own, his friends, family, and those around him. Jason's also a beast, keeps himself fit and healthy, and there's a number of aspects today where he speaks of the importance of this and how it's kept him from drifting outside of the margins from time to time. So thanks for coming back to the Firefighters podcast. Let's jump in there, and I will see you on the other side. Jason.
What's up, brother?
Yes, my man. How you doing?
Good. Quick question for you. Do you want this to be video or audio?
We are not going to use the video, so you don't have to throw your video up if you don't want to. It's entirely up to you, mate. It's just so I can see that handsome face of yours, but it is not essential. If you're in the nude, you're absolutely fine. Don't worry about it.
No. I mean, I can be in the nude if you want, bro. But
well, give me 2 minutes, my man. That's a different show.
By removing all clothing from the page.
There
we go. What's up, brother?
I'm good, brother. I love that thing behind you, by the way. That was the flag when I saw the mental health video as well as other pieces of content. Did you make that yourself?
No, I had a friend make it for me, but what I'm considering doing, just because I love it so much, is I want to actually add all 50 stars to it because people lose their shit about that. So
I bet you've got
like so upset. Like, I'm 27 stars. I'm like,
which ones are you against? Which ones are you not including?
Yeah, people love to argue, man. It's like their favorite thing in the world. Love it.
Controversy is just, that's what sells, right? Unfortunately.
That's what happened with Live Rescue. With all those Live Rescue shows, they just didn't do well because there's no controversy. Yeah. It's just firefighters showing up for people's calls. And that's pretty much it.
And I mean, that's kind of the irony, and I'm going to jump into it in a minute, but when I first saw some of your Firefighters Chronicles stuff, you've really struck the balance between that nice little prod, that little bit of banter, that little bit of humor, but I suppose you've got the USP that you're an operational firefighter as well, and people get it, but there's so much jabs at some members of the community out there, and it's like this keyboard warrior analogy. Anyway, I don't want to digress. I have a horrible tendency to get so into it with people before we even begin. So
you're good at your job. So
I try about that. So you are one of the best and also most challenging conversations for me to have, because you've got so much stuff out there, brother, with the coffee company, with your own USP as a credible operational firefighter. And then it wasn't until I stumbled across some of the sort of changing gears, more sincere, not that the other stuff isn't sincere, but some of the mental health stuff, and then the story about your dad's brother and stuff. And I was like, I'll be honest, my man crush went from like 8 to 10 when I saw that sort of stuff. So I'll try and keep the clothes on, and we'll see how we go.
Script podcast. I've never done it before.
Man, but then I also saw you made reference to your gym in a post at some point, and then obviously as we all do, I was checking you out, and I was like, dude keeps himself active as well. I love it. Man after my own heart is healthy mind, healthy body. You get it, which is awesome.
That's what it's about, man.
Absolutely, brother. Jason Patton, welcome to the Firefighters podcast. How you doing, brother?
I appreciate it, man. I'm doing well. How's everything with you?
I am really good, my man. It's actually a little bit colder over here in the UK today. I was out at the horses this morning, and it was really bloody cold. It'd been warm for like a week, and now it's just dipped again. But I have to reserve myself, because I know in America you actually get real weather. We just get play about. We operate in like a 15-20 degree bandwidth, and you hit the spectrum much bigger than we do.
I'm actually in Florida, so our bandwidth isn't too bad, thankfully. Thank God. But I was just in Chicago this weekend, and that was bad. It was really bad. Yeah.
I had a guy on from Canada the other day, and I said to him, "Oh, dude, we had some snow. It was amazing. It was like up to my boots." And he was like, "Yeah, it's waist deep over here." I'm like, "Oh, shit. Yeah. Well, you know what it's like then." It's just the same.
It was like 8 feet. There was like on the side of the roads, there was like 8 feet of snow. I'm like, I'm good.
When does it stop being fun? You know, because I mean, honestly, man, in the UK, we get a bit of snow after like an hour. People are moaning, whereas I'm like a kid. I will get in the truck, I'll throw the sleds in the back, me and my kids will go up to the slopes or something, and I'll be there for 8 hours. I don't care if I get cold or whatever. But you know, you referenced Chicago and Canada and stuff like that. When does weather stop being fun? I mean, you said you obviously operate in heat out there. When is it too hot? When people go, "Oh, Florida's gorgeous." When do you like, dude, it's too hot?
You know, I think it's kind of probably the same thing with firefighters in Chicago and or really cold areas where like the heat is fun. It's fine until I'm fully bunked out in all of my gear, doing an extrication and like feeling like I'm going to pass out, kind of thing. Like it's so freaking hot. But I would imagine there, where it loses its fun is at 2 a.m. when you're doing a structure fire and you're having to defrost your hydrant just to get water out of it. Like, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's it. You know, we have it a little bit in the UK where hydrant lids get a little bit covered over, a little bit silt, a little bit rubbish, and you have to give them a couple of bashes. And we have basically the key that slips inside the pole itself. And when sometimes you bash it, if it's the first few times you've done it, it catches that piece of skin on the inside of your thumb. You always see a new recruit do it, and some of these great Instagram channels that catch people doing stupid stuff like that, and it's always that you always get a little scar on the inside of your thumb, stuff like that. And then when you do it in the cold, you're just like, I'm just bored now. This is not fun now.
Everything is worse in the cold. Everything.
But equally, like you said, the reverse is true. I remember a couple of years ago when he did our breaking and shoring, like international search and rescue stuff for collapsed structures. It was gorgeous. We were sat out on the truck. It was gorgeous, waiting for the rig to get set up, and then you go crawling down the hole, dragging your braking gear in. You're immediately like, this is too hot. And you just can't even see, and your visor's misting up, and you're like, this wasn't like the film. I didn't see this happening in the film. What the hell? And I love
that's what I love about that, man. Any of those things, dude. Like, people think you can see in fires, or if you don't snap your SCBA on, like you just walking around. Like, no, if that thing's not snapping, all you see.
Yeah. You did the other day and you were like, the lesser used listen and search, right? I was like, listen and rescue. I was like, that is so good. But funnily enough, and I don't know, maybe I'm making a pitch, I don't know, because I don't actually think there is that many in the UK. Most of the stuff most of the shows that put themselves out there to be ridiculed tend to be US based shows, not all, but most. Is there a wider gap? I feel like we've jumped halfway down where I wanted to talk to you about, but it doesn't matter. Is there less of a reality adjustment for people's perception of quote unquote emergency services in the US versus the UK? I don't know.
I don't know if it's a entertainment based thing. I don't know, because I get it. I make fun of the shows because it's fun. Like, the people that I'm making fun of it for are the people that would never watch the shows in the first place.
Exactly.
So it's kind of just entertainment for us kind of thing.
Yeah,
but it's about like what's dramatic, what's fun, what looks cool. Like, I get it, man. I get why they do it, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's just because of the United States we want everything bigger and better and all that fun stuff.
Is.
It's true. I mean, I like everything bigger and better. Bigger explosions, stuff like that.
I feel like we ruin it for ourselves in the UK sometimes. We have that like stiff upper lip where we're like, no, I'm not going to lower myself to that. And a lot of our emergency services based shows are very much of the actual reality. It'll be like following somebody on an ambulance for a day, and you can tell that they're really trying to over dramatize. Do you know what I mean? They're like, oh, Janice has got blood in her stool. What are the paramedics going to do about it? And we're like, really? Do you know what I mean?
Who cares? You're going to go to the hospital.
She'll go to the hospital. She'll take some paracetamol. I don't know. Who cares? Rehydrate.
No, they do it here too.
Yeah,
they do the live. Live PD, live rescue, stuff like that. There's something called Night Watch, I believe, and that's it's the same thing. It's scripted reality, So, but you can see where they're like. I mean, though I was on live rescue, and there's that one with the dog. We get there, and there's a dog, quote unquote, in a car, and we all know that this lady is trying to get her car unlocked for free. So we got to play the game. Like, oh no, where's the dog? Because if we look at her and go, you're not. We know this isn't true. We get fired. So
where's the dog?
So
how big is the vehicle? You know what I mean? It's not a 7-lane wide, limo.
No.
I've done a full search of the vehicle. Yeah, there was 4 windows. You looked in all 4 of them. Yeah, I did a full search of the vehicle, boss. I did a 360. Yeah, you just had windows, so you just looked inside it, right?
Well, and one of the guys said that. He goes, how big is the dog? She goes, it's a small dog. He goes, is it like under a seat? She goes, I don't know. It could be. And we're like, all right.
I love that. So, I mean, we've jumped straight into it there, but for anybody unfamiliar with yourself, because we've got 52 something countries listening in, but Instagram, Fire Department Chronicles, that's where I first came across the powerful that is Jason Patton.
So Fire Department Chronicles was just something that it doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter what country you're from. Firefighters are the same no matter where you go, man. You always get the same people that walk in the stations and all the fun stuff. So we started messing around, filming our first one, we called it battalion chief, like kind of the highest level operational person on shift. These guys always have, or some of them have big bellies and big mustaches. So we were doing National Geographic's Fire Department Edition, and we were going in there and hunting for them. And I was like, my accents are horrible, so don't judge me. But I was like, the larger the belly, the more gnarly they are. And I started poking them in the belly, we put that up and people loved it, man. It was our way of the same humor that seems to be, the same across the board. We just wanted to have some fun. I'm always shocked at the 3 countries besides the United States, but it's Germany, the UK, and what do you call it? What's the other one? Australia. Those, always commenting on it. Just so cool. They're like, this is it.
You know what though? I feel we're maybe 3rd. I'm gonna be slightly patriotic and put Germany just below us. And what I'm gonna say is, US and Australia, you guys have an unapologetic patriotic aspect to your love of the emergency services. And I'll be honest, this is kind of what brought me to the birth of the Firefighters podcast, because certainly in the UK, we're not very good at that. You know, you guys, you're so much more open about putting the badges on your vehicles. You're able to wear your kit when you're out, when you're not at station, when you're not at work, and there feels to be a greater love. You know, you fly your Union Jacks in the station and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, Union Jacks for you, but why is that? How? I mean, I don't know if you'll know why we lost it, but how is it that you guys are still so patriotic? And do you think there was ever a time? Because you've been in 13 years now, right?
Yeah, I've been 13 years. Yeah, nice.
Was it always like that when you first started, or have you seen any difference in the patriotism that you see in the job?
No, I mean, it from as long as I can remember, it's always been like that. There was always. It's like anything. There's always, ups and downs, ebbs and flows of life, and through this or through, emergency services and stuff. So there's always been down points and stuff, especially when money gets tight. People don't like first responders for some reason. But 9/11
it's a big glorified insurance policy, isn't it? Basically, no, we don't appreciate it until you need it. But you're right. I interrupted you. 9/11 was a big spike. You see this with big incidents when you're like, oh, that's why we need them.
Yeah. Oh, that's the reason why we need first responders. So, that's what we saw a bigger spike, and then it's come down since then. Again, cancer, right? So all these guys that are in the muck, pulling people out, doing stuff like that, they're getting cancer from all the dust that they're inhaling. Yeah. But some of these people, it's not happening 15 years later, and people are like, oh. Cost too much money. Like, we can't help you now. Like,
maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We're having this now, right? Because so you used to have firefighters retiring at late 40s, early 50s, yeah. And I feel like if they were to have any carcinogenic effects from some of the substances, the byproducts of incidents they'd attended, it wasn't necessarily showing itself. But now we're in an instance where people are actually going to be getting those long-term chronic diseases whilst they're still in the job. And I feel like, and I'm not looking forward to it remotely, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, that we're going to start seeing this in the job. And it will be interesting to see how fire services adapt to that then. Because, when somebody leaves the job, we remember them and we appreciate them, but they step away a little bit from the fire service or the fire department family. So you don't really realize if they're and if they get cancer, people are like, oh, that's terrible. Did you hear about Johnny? Yeah, he got cancer. All right, why? And nobody really knows, but it's really sad. We'll send her some flowers. Yeah. But now these people are going to be in the job and they're going to be like, yeah, dude from Blue Watch, he's got cancer. And you're like, do you know what I mean? So I feel like we're going to see that.
So I will tell you, federally and state-wise, they've done kind of a very similar thing. Now it's 30 years of service. It used to be 25. Now it's 30 years of service, or I'm not going to have the age right, but let's 65, something like that. I'm in a 20-year pension, so 20 years and you're done. Yeah. So, or you can go to 30 if you want, but most people, they do that. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But the big problem is I don't know about you guys, but we run about, depending on the area, 80 to 85% EMS over fire. I don't want a 65-year-old guy or 60-year-old dude trying to go into a fire with me. No. If we do have it, like, I don't.
That's it. We've had people on from Germany, right? And they go and do like 4-day arduous conditions. They still do swims in the pool. They have to do a minute breath hold and then bounce back up and they bob. And I'm like, that's amazing. I love that. It's like a bleep test at 8 point something. And I'm like, oh, really? I want, equality, diversity, all of that. And I'm not rolling my eyes at that. Yeah. I want that, but I don't care if you're black, white, blue, 3 arms, 6 arms, 2 arms. I don't care. Yeah. That's irrelevant. Yeah. This is the mark. And everybody can do it. Come on. It's not an Olympic standard, guys. And that worries me because, like you were saying there, if we set the bar low to start, we don't, it doesn't get better from then on for a lot of people, unless they're crazy, insane, addictive, quirky individuals such as ourselves. They're probably not. They probably won't keep going after that self-punishing session in the gym every day. But as a byproduct, they also may not stay fit and healthy for longer, which is sad and worrying when the cost is life.
Exactly. The bar should never be lowered. And like you said, no firefighter that should be a firefighter in the EMS gives a crap if you're a woman or a man or what color you are. Like none of us do. I'll work next to anybody as long as they are fit. The woman thing has always come up. People are like, women shouldn't be firefighters, and I'm like, I don't agree with that. I've met women that are incredible firefighters.
Yeah, some of them are absolute beasts. I think a lot of guys I see on recruitment days, they just kind of swagger in there and they're like, oh yeah, my dad used to be in the fire department, or they think they're going to pass the dexterity test because, I used to help my dad with his car. Whereas women, they tend to show up, pay attention, you give them feedback and advice, they will go and do it. And then they come back and they pass. So wonderful. Men should learn more from the women in that respect.
I tell you, every woman that I've ever seen that people are like, that woman is below standards, I'm going to point out a man that is in the same exact area.
At least one. At least one.
Yeah, at least one. So, like, just stop. I get it. Don't lower the standards. The standards should be the same. But actually, I'll tell you this, man, because you talk about that. A friend of mine, or a girl I met at the gym, her name's Oscarina, right? And she is a small woman. And she's like, she's from another country. She came here. She learned English, like literally spoke no English when she came here 6 or 7 years ago, works out of my gym. She is not a big girl. And she went into, we call it a CPAT test. She took the CPAT test and failed. And she trained for a year and a half, dude. Took it 6 more times and failed every single time. And not because she wasn't trying or physically she was fit enough. She just wasn't strong enough yet.
Yeah.
And she trained and learned techniques and learned how to hit properly and stuff like that.
Love it.
And the last time she did it, bro, she had like 45 seconds or a minute remaining when she finished, bro. Like, killed it, man. Dedication.
But the character building as well. The character building that's taken place during that. This is why, and I'll be honest, mate, I'd rather we raise the standards, because people go, it's not the same as when it used to be in the job. No, it's not the same. You've got far more resources now. You've got far more support. Technology, nutrition, our understanding of our own physiology has come a long way. So be resourceful. Utilize the resources. Yeah, we should raise the bar. We're not lowering the bar, we're raising the bar. And that's what I would like to see, because people that were getting in, but back when we joined, I've been in 12 years now. People back then, there was people in the job that really had just got in through perseverance. They didn't know anything about nutrition. They didn't know anything about. They didn't really exercise. They thought, I'm going to do this fitness test. I better go for a run tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? And that was it. They would just go and hit a run. There was nothing else involved, and then they would just fumble their way through it. Now, with all the resources and people like yourself and people all over social media, giving so much free stuff on YouTube, how to do it, we should be raising the bar. And if you're not resourceful enough to go and do that, then I don't think you shouldn't be in the job anyway. I remember when I joined, I was going down every week, unpaid, just going down learning, just watching. I wasn't allowed to get involved with the drills. I was watching, I was asking questions. I would join the guys for workouts and then have to leave, immediately after, because they had jobs to do. But now, cracky, man, you try and get people to turn up for an hour to find out about the fire department, and they're like, nah, can't I do it over Zoom? I'm like, no. Show up, be interested, come on.
Try to save this person over Zoom.
Yeah. So I wanted to jump back to 2 questions. I just got excitedly carried away. Fire Department Chronicles, you said when it first started, it was based around, you sort of started poking fun at the senior rank and the chiefs and stuff like that, but you used the term we. Was it something that your cohort of recruits went into? And then a second question after that was, what did happen to the mustaches? Because I don't see many people in the job now at all. I mean, we had to shave here, because obviously we've got to get the face seal, but that went. Where did it go?
Yeah.
2 questions.
Yeah. No, I've actually, mustaches for me, I've never had. Firefighter Fenton has a huge mustache, right? But me, you don't want to see me have a mustache, man. You just don't. It's just bad. I've grown 2 mustaches in my life, and both of them, I grew it and looked in the mirror and was like, I look like I'm going to snatch kids up in a van.
Yeah.
Like, this is not okay. Like, absolutely terrifying. But yeah, it was all of us. It was all of us coming together, having a good time. And most of the people that I worked with were actually involved in Fire Department Chronicles for a while. And it was really fun. We would all film together and have a good time, and people genuinely enjoyed it. The reason I had to stop was a couple of things. One, it's just difficult to involve other people in the videos, because you got to pull them away from what they're doing. You got to tell, and it's more of an inconvenience for them, and I feel bad. But it's just so much easier for me to play every single character. It's just to be the person wearing a wig, and then just screw it. Like,
it works as well. I feel like some people have a misinterpretation about what's required in terms of perseverance and consistency, and you're not always going to be in the mood. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you might, 10 seconds before this, you might have been saying to your missus, oh, Jesus, I've got to get on with a bloody podcast with that guy from the UK. Exactly. Man, I wish I'd have picked a different time. Do you know what I mean?
I did. I was like,
I'll just blow it off.
He's not even from the US. Why am I doing it?
Yeah, why am I doing it? Babe, it might be good for the, spread your message. No, ram it. UK is dead. Nobody likes the UK. It's gone. That's yesterday's news. USA.
You can't even travel there. Why the hell am I doing this?
That's going to sink. It's going to sink one day, and we won't even remember it. It'll be in the history books. I'm going to erase it now. But no, you know what? It's true, though. You're not always in the mood. It's not always going to be easy, and the setbacks are plenty. Do you know what I mean? There's an aspect of that. Could you speak to the perseverance side of it and how you have managed to keep going as long as you have? Firstly, just with Fire Department Chronicles, because it's been going for a while now, and it's tremendously successful.
I appreciate it. No, perseverance is something that everyone should experience at some point in time in their life. Disappointment is a huge one. I think because it sucks, but there's huge learning lessons. You look at people who have never had to persevere, never had to struggle to get to something, and you can see it in their character. They don't truly understand what it's like to be, or what it's like to experience failure, what it's like to see the other side of the pendulum. And it's what genuinely teaches you lessons. No true champion or athlete or anything like that has ever just won every single time. They have it. Michael Jordan, considered one of the greatest basketball players ever. I'm not going to quote it because I'll screw it up. But he talks about because everyone just talks about his wins, and he's like, "Yo, I've lost this many championships. I've missed this many game-winning points. 100%. It happens, man."
There's so many of them out there. You hear there's been some great stuff about Ray Kroc. McDonald's didn't start it till he was in his 50s. Harlan Sanders, I think he went to something like over 100 places, tried to sell his KFC recipe, never got there. Go UK side. People talk about Harry Potter, the greatest children's book ever. No one even took that book on to start with. She had to give it away free to libraries. She took it to 100. Yeah. And if you can get one of those first ones, she released 100 to the libraries, free public libraries. If you've got one of them now, it's worth hundreds of thousands of pounds. And she had to live in a car with her daughter. Do you know what I mean? And people look at them now and they're like, oh yeah, J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter films here, there, everywhere. It's easy for them. But people, it's such a cop-out. It's so easy to say that. We've obviously created this, but is there an aspect of we've fallen in love with efficiency and we've fallen in love with instant gratification, that if we even hear a whisper, if we even smell a little bit of, oh, this is going to be jarring, this is going to be difficult, this doesn't seem logical, then I'm going to knock it on the head. The setbacks don't seem to find their way into a lot of people's perceived recipe of success, if you will.
But it's so normal. It is just I have videos that I put up that, in my opinion, have bombed. They bombed. They weren't. I thought they were hysterical, but they did not go up. Side note on this is two things. Number one, writing a book is absolutely insane. Anyone who writes a book, it's just so impressive to me. And two, the fact that I love Harry Potter, and the fact that Harry Potter was good from the first. I watched all the movies. I didn't read any books, but from the first movie to the last movie, it was good. And I would imagine the books were twice as good because everyone says that. But the fact that they were carried so well was just so cool. I read a series called Mistborn, and it was such a cool series. I was hoping that one day, hopefully, they'll probably screw it up and make it into a movie, but it was just
pessimist.
Cool. They'll definitely screw it up, 100%, man. But, so yeah, dude, I agree with you, man. It's instant satisfaction, instant gratification. So, and the way that I see this on my side is I can see the analytics for my videos. The average watch time is 3 seconds. That's how long you have to catch people's it's got to be stats. And it's crazy, man, that you have to be able to gather people instantly, because otherwise they just move on. But I'm the same way. I'm like, and that is
that's the way you've been trained, though. We're not counting. I mean, you said 3 seconds, and we're not going to argue over semantics, but I think it's even less than that now, because marketing and stuff, they've started measuring it in milliseconds. Because I was listening to a really good book the other day about gaming. Now I don't do any gaming, but how addictive it is and how some people can like end up losing days and days of their life. The point I'm making is one of the things they found to make it incredibly addictive was, you know, like when we were kids and you play a game and you lose, and it says game over. Yeah, and then you have you have to restart or you have to go back to the menu and press enter. They did something with a game called Flappy Birds. Flappy Birds came out apparently, I don't know how many years ago, and it was the most successful game ever because the character instantly respawned. There was no what called sort of get out moment where you can sort of stop for a second and go, oh, should I go and do something more productive with my life? It didn't happen. And you see this now. Social media and Netflix and YouTube and all of them have cottoned onto this. You don't have to click anything when you go on there. Nope. You go onto Instagram, you go onto wherever, it immediately starts playing. Immediately. You don't have to go, oh, what shall I watch? Remember back and you had to click on something and go, well, I'll see what that's like. Now, bang, it's straight at you. And the clock started. I'm bored. And that's it. And now that just trains us constantly. If something doesn't fulfill me emotionally, physically, sexually, whatever, in the first few seconds, do you know what I mean? And when you can get something from Amazon tomorrow and you can get 50 hours of Netflix 100%. Right now, well, then why would I wait, Jason? Why would I work? What's the point? Our expectation for what we're entitled to do, and again, we talk about success. If success isn't outrageous and unbelievable, and you spoke about some of your videos, and I imagine the analytics are similar aspect to the podcast. If you release a podcast episode, and in the first day it doesn't get 1,000 downloads, then you're like, oh, it sucks. It's really rubbish. Well, you know what? Someone comes across it, and what do? With a podcast, I'll tell you what they do. They tend to scroll back to the beginning and go, I'll listen to episode 1. And then it continues to accumulate. I'm going to catch myself because I made a comment earlier. I said pessimist. You said something and you went pessimist. Do you know what I mean? We were just playing there, but it got me thinking about the analogy of a pessimist versus an optimist. I remember reading again the other day, I was reading some quote stuff with my daughter. We tend to sit down and read things that make our minds turn over, which is nice. And it says, pessimists they're more often right. They're more often right than the optimist, but the optimist is often far more successful. And I see that with you. You're similar to me in that it's kind of one of them, just point me in the right direction and press play. And in all seriousness, probably just before this, you were like, oh God, I've got this thing later. And you might have been thinking about this. Boom, switch on, it's time to go. Do you know what I mean? And it's just point me in the right direction. Do you see yourself as a serial optimist?
I try to be as optimistic as possible. And just so you know, I love podcasts. So I love
I'm joking.
Just so you know. I try to be optimistic because there are enough pessimists in the world. Now, I will find myself wanting to be pessimistic because I think that's it's kind of like what has happened in the entire world is like you have to look at everything negatively to be able to properly prepare for the outcome. It's like the outcome is going to be inevitable. Like it does not matter how you feel about it. But guess what? You can at least walk into the situation feeling optimistic, creating good hormone responses, good vibes. If you believe in energy levels and stuff like that, like you can at least walk through life feeling that way. It doesn't matter what you do. The end result will be the end result. But at least during the journey, I can learn something because pessimists tend to not learn things. They tend to just be like, oh, I knew that was going to fail. Okay, well, why did it fail? Because it was meant to fail. Like, no, like maybe.
We could go deeper than that, but that's kind of the punchline for most of them. And it also becomes a self-perpetuating cycle because they don't even look for the opportunity. And then because they're not looking for it, they don't see it. And then it reinforces their belief of that self-perpetuating cycle that there is no opportunities. Well, you didn't look for one. Yeah, but there wasn't one there. Yeah, but you didn't look, so you wouldn't have seen it if there was. Yeah, but there wasn't, was there? And you're like, you're not going to get it. You need to have that full shift. But I always look at it like, a game of football or lacrosse or, anything that you guys do over there as well. It's when you have a big team, when the opposition's running at you, you're like, if they keep doing what they're doing, they're going to score. But if we all go, well, they're moving this way, so it's inevitable they're going to get to that end eventually, right? But if a collection of us, we know when you see somebody turn, and you see this like in films where somebody says, oh, let's start running back towards the enemy, and one person turns, and then somebody's like, yeah, I'm going to turn as well. And then like 5 or 10 or 20, and then the whole thing has that domino effect. I look at optimism like that. You know what? One person is not going to change the world. They're not. You can control yourself, and then maybe your partner, maybe your children, not control, that's a horrible word, but you can influence yourself and maybe your partner and stuff like that. But only from there will that domino start to fall. Beyond that, that's control the controllables. That's beyond your realm of possibility to control it. But if you just, every time you make that tap, if you and I were in the same room and there was a third person there, serial optimism would bleed over into them. Even if they thought they weren't listening, they would still have a slightly more optimistic disposition.
Yeah.
Because it's the people you place yourself around.
Yeah, exactly. My grandma always said, you know, if you hang out in a barbershop long enough, you're eventually going to get a haircut. Like, and it's the truth, right? Like, that is a big thing for a lot of people. It's just like, look, you can look at things negatively if you want, and that's fine. Your end result will be a negative result every time. That's the way you're going to look at it. But, you know, like I said before, one of the biggest things I ever heard, one of the coolest pieces of advice I ever heard was on a podcast, and Dane Cook was on it. And Dane Cook is I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's a big comedian that was out here, or is out here. He's really huge for a while. But he kept talking about how in the beginning of his career, he would just put out content, just bob. He would just like saturate the market with content, because eventually something's going to hit, right? And it worked, because he became very famous. So I thought of that one day, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. He's right. So, like, don't put out junk content, or don't put out stuff that, like, is just, like, me sipping a cup of coffee and then that's it. Yeah. But, you know, stuff that you genuinely think is good, throw it out there, whether or not it does well or not. And the best example of this was we put out a video through Fire Department Coffee, and it didn't do very well. It didn't do very well at all. But the video,
like my mom watched it and my dad watched it, and I think that was it. That was like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In fact, my dad didn't even like it. He didn't even like it.
Man, my dad was like,
anyway,
but like, so the video wasn't our normal stuff. It was kind of like a badassery kind of thing. The video was seen by the same guys that manage Stipe Miocic, who's the UFC heavyweight champion, and because of that, we hooked up. And they contacted us, and we ended up getting a contract with the UFC heavyweight champion, the current UFC heavyweight champion, Coffee. Yeah. So, I mean, it does, like, you can think of things negatively, but if you look at it in a positive, even a huge failure will always teach you something, and you can pull the positive out of it and move on to actually creating something.
Somebody used the analogy of the 1% to me a long time ago, that, you know, if there are 100 people in the room, and 99 of them say, Jason, dude, it sucks. I hate it. I really hate it. Yeah. And only one person's like, no, man, I thought it was hilarious. Well, if you extrapolate those numbers out, if you can only get 1% of the population of the earth, you've got a tremendous, if you can get 0.1%, you've got a tremendous, but when you're in that, you know, that room and 99 people are saying, dude, it sucks, you'd be forgiven for going, you know what, I'm going to knock this on the head because it's clearly not working. But, you know, you're looking for that depth. I wanted to take us back to what made you first join the job. Why did you choose the job? I had that written down as like my second point I wanted to talk to you about, and we've gone around the houses, but what made you choose the fire department?
It was sheer luck, man. Honest to God, destiny, or whatever you want to call it, bro. God, I was a mechanic, man. I was working as a mechanic. I only got into being a mechanic because my father was a mechanic, and I sucked. I hated it. I was horrible. I was the worst mechanic on the face of the planet. I swear to God. Actually, when I quit and went to become a firefighter, I talked to one of the guys like 5 years later. He's like, 6 months. We were dealing with your comeback. 6 months. People were bringing their cars back, going, this shit's still broken. I'm like, it was your fault for keeping me employed. So
that must have been a flashback. You recently did a post about a fire in a garage, didn't you? You did some commentary on one, and that must have been, because I didn't know you were a mechanic before, that must have been a little bit of a flashback of mistakes and learning. I mean, I'm not saying you ever burnt the place down, but
that was a funny part. People are like, just lower the car and push it out. I'm like, do you know how slow those lifts are? They would have all burned up and died by the time that thing hit the ground.
Love it.
So a buddy of mine comes to me and he's like, hey, you should try EMT school. I just went to EMT school. You should try it out. And I was like, it was a huge jump for me, man, because I was like, I'm comfortable in things. Once I'm in them, I'm comfortable staying in there. And I was like, you know what, man? I don't like what I'm doing. Let me give this a shot. So I went to EMT school at night when I was getting off shift. Getting off being a mechanic. It was exhausting. I was driving an hour south to do it, but I loved it, man. I loved it. It was amazing to me.
What did you love about it?
So cool. There is something about when you fix a car, right? You fix a car, you spend 8 hours taking an engine apart, putting it back together, getting everything right, cranking that key, and hearing that engine going and then starting up. Yeah. And there's just some satisfaction to being like, I did that. Like, I fixed that car. And it's multiplied by 1,000 when you do it to a human. When you're physically watching a human, number one, I was just so impressed with the human body. collateral blood flow.
Man, it is amazing. You know, we are really a pretty incredible animal. You know, we live all over the world. We are so adaptable, and you know, there's not many other things like us out there.
What truly impressed me in general was 5 years later, after I'd already learned all this stuff, learning about stem cells and how the body, when my daughter was born, is really why I started looking at. She's about 5 years old now. The fact that the female body understands that it has to build this piece first, and then this piece, and then this, and then that. But if any of those are off, done. The baby cannot come out. And it actually understands how to build all these processes. And it's what the? It's just mind blowing. And most people will never have an understanding of how complex that really is. And I was just so impressed by it. It was just so cool to me.
But do you also think, because I love what you say there, and you obviously have a natural inquisitiveness, a curiosity about you, hence why you're constantly, tinkering in different aspects. But we're in a world now where information is so easily accessible. I still don't see a lot of people going out their way, even just to pick up their smartphone and learn some of these basic things about their own physiology, about hydration, blood pressure, glucose tolerance, sugars. The amount of people that become diabetic now is just unreal because a genuine lack of understanding. They're not. Some are ignorant, but some are
it's not a lack of understanding. They just don't care.
I think a larger proportion of them don't care. Yeah, I agree with that, but it's scary because, like you say, you guys see, and girls, you see the other end or the extreme side of that. So when you got into your EMT, was it all night school that you had to learn? How was the basic training and how long did it last?
This one was 3 months long. It was all night school. It was 3 days a week, I believe. And then I had to do, we call them ride times and clinicals as well. So I had to go to.
Is that like ride along where you go and shadow operational crews and you have to wear a tabard and look like the person that doesn't know what they're doing and hold the urine bag and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, kind of. I would always walk in the room and introduce myself as the captain. I'd be like, "Hey, I'm the captain here today," and those guys are like, "Get out of this right now."
So we do very little EMT in the UK. I do the trauma stuff, but most firefighters over here, I'm going to generalize, really don't like it, and we don't do a lot alongside paramedics, which is a real shame. I would love us to do more, hence why I volunteered to do the teaching side of it. But as part of that, I've gone and done several. We do it every year. We'll go and do ride-alongs with operational paramedics to just upskill our stuff because there's so many new drugs coming out, and just if we need to support them on an incident, what do we need to do? And I'm the same as you. When I walk in there, okay, guys, what's the problem? What are we doing? What do you need? What do you need? And they start asking you questions. They're like, oh, well, I've got my abdomen's feeling really tight, and I'm like, okay, can you do this? Can you do that? What have you eaten today? What was the last thing you passed? Do you take any medication? Are you allergic to anything? And the paramedic will be next to me like, do you even know what you're doing, Pete? Do you want me to get involved at any point? You're supposed to be shadowing me. And I'll turn to him and I'm like, I think we're going to need this. And he's like, that's really nice, Pete. Why don't you let me do the assessment? Because I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, that's a good call. You crack on. I'll just watch. Yeah.
First off, convenience is the reason why people don't want to learn more about their bodies, because it's inconvenient to have to cook all your food. It's inconvenient to not be able to pick something up. It's inconvenient to learn that the sugary product that you're eating at night is probably not good for you. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, but getting overweight is inconvenient as well. Not being able to walk. Chronic joint pain is inconvenient. And I know that's long-term pain. But...
And that's the problem. It's long-term. It takes a while to get there. And then once they get there, they're used to it. It's just like, oh, no, this is who I am. Like, all right,
I've always been big boned, and you're like, no, you haven't. You weren't at 12 stone. You at 20 stone, you were pushing it. Now at 30 stone, you've lost it.
And I think again, we're our own enemies. We're a product of our environment. We create the things that we want to create. And there are people, there are extreme cases, or there are cases where there are. I don't know about you guys, but in the United States, there's antidepressant medication that genuinely will make you gain 50 pounds. I watched it happen to a friend of mine. She took antidepressant medications, was not a big girl. She did not change anything in her life and gained 50 pounds. And I went and looked at the reviews. It was every single comment. I gained 50 pounds. I gained 60 pounds. That's not a one-off. That's everybody.
Yeah. But nobody cares about that. Sometimes, we don't list the byproducts. There's so many stuff out there that causes digestion dysfunction, anal leakage, migraines, and you're like, They seriously put that on there, and I'm like, Jesus Christ! And they're like, hey, but it helps with the headache a little bit, and you're like, I'll take it. I'm on. I'll take 5.
It is what it is, man. It's unfortunate, but you can't force people to. Inception was such a great movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I loved Inception.
The concept was so deep and so true. My fiance, Jesus. My fiance
Dude, I'm going to edit that out because we'll find out where say some really nice stuff at the end and I'll put it in there.
Yeah, exactly. But my fiance and I work with mental health and substance abuse issues of first responders, and then she does the same with the general public. But she's been in recovery for 10 years, and she used a quote that I loved. She said, "You can't rob somebody of their rock bottom. You can't force people to want to work out. You can't force them to, and if they don't want to eat properly, they don't want to do things, then you let them be who they are." Yeah. And then when they have a massive heart attack or one of their best friends dies or something like that, and they're like, I have to do this.
You've got to let them walk smack bang into their pain point, because you can try and drag the pain point closer and closer and closer, and just apply pressure and apply all these analogies of how it's going to kill them. But until they experience that pain, I mean, she's absolutely right. I remember reading statistics. If you survive your first heart attack, it's likely you'll live to be a very old man or woman, because that was your. They're like, "Oh, Jason, you put on a bit of weight, dude. You should really look after yourself." Then you have a heart attack, and they go, "Okay, Mr. Patton, sit yourself down. It looks like you're going to die in a year if you don't." And you're like, and then you run out, and you buy all the nutrition books, you sign up to all the gyms, you leave the house in Lycra every day, and all of a sudden something changes because the pain point becomes closer. But yeah, she's absolutely right. Sorry, go on.
No, you're 100% right. What would save humanity? Period. What would save humanity would be moderation. If you could put a line right down the middle and just create moderation down the middle, it would save humanity. Yeah. Like, we could actually figure things out. But people don't like that, man. And I get it. Sometimes I find a new song and I listen to it 800 times before I'm like, Jesus Christ, I hate that song. But like that's the way people operate. Yeah. And people who gain weight, they gain weight over 20 years, 30 years. That's it. But they want to lose it in 6 months. So they're going to do the new fad diet where you only eat celery but through your butthole. That's the only way you're allowed to eat the butthole celery diet. Like it works, man. Like, yeah, what?
I lost 10 stone in a day, but I can't walk. Yeah. And you're like,
it's like people wear sweatsuits. They wear sweatsuits and go out and run in sweatsuits. You're like, I lost 20 pounds working out yesterday. I'm like, it's all water.
Data, but it's not a tangible metric that you can track. It's not sustainable. It just dehydrated the system slowly. And it only worked to a certain extent. And actually the body became more acidic and held on to any fat tissue. And and I know we're not making this all about fitness, but when you do, we've referenced weight several times, but ultimately we're talking about fat. That's what we're talking about. But the thing with fat is it's got so many negative connotations. Do you know what I mean? It's a very powerful, emotive word. If you say, you mean you need to lose fat? And they go, excuse me, I'm not fat, Jason. I'm just a little bit overweight. And go, no, dude, you're fat. Aren't you? You're fat. That's okay. Fat is just a substance like paper or water. Yeah, it's fat. Yeah. In fact, you just need to lose the fat.
And people take it personally. That's the problem. They're like, I am not fat. And it's like, dude, you're not a shitty human. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm not telling you you're a shitty human.
You didn't just beat a puppy. No one's saying you're going on some, we're just saying. And the thing is, I think it's because when it happens to adults we have to admit that we go, I got it wrong. I thought I was doing the thing. Okay, the thing didn't work. And you have to give away a lot of pride then.
Yeah. Well, and life happens, bro. Life happens. Like the best example is honestly like moms have a baby, right? They gain all this weight, or whatever natural amount of weight. And yes, some of it can be diet-based, but a good friend of mine, her name's Nicole, this woman worked out from the second she was pregnant to the second and she gained 100 freaking pounds, dude. I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. In fact, her brand new husband, we were throwing a football right before she gave birth to the baby. And I was like, so, Nicole gained a bit of weight. And he's like, oh my God, yeah.
She's like, no. Nicole is dead. Like, that's the woman that ate Nicole. That's what you see there. Yeah. Nicole's not here no more.
But she it wasn't her fault. It was a hormone shift. It happens, right? Yeah. So women, they give birth. and they gain it, and then now there's that hormone shift back, and now they're taking care of a baby and they're breastfeeding, and maybe the husband's working, or the husband can only help out so much. So and then now you're trying to watch a toddler or an infant for the next 2 years of your life. Yeah. Like working out is very difficult, especially when you're exhausted and all that fun stuff. So people, they get upset when you're like, no, let me help you gain weight, because no one's blaming them, dude. I have a 5-year-old. Dealing with children is very difficult, especially if you have 5 of them, let alone trying to work out. Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's get so it's difficult, but you have to try to figure it right, try to meld it in there, and then also accept that 6-pack that you want, probably not going to happen. No. Just a dad bod is good, but a slim
What I hear when you say that is sort of, we speak about working smarter, not harder, and I've found this as I've got. I mean, I'm only in my 30s now, but I did a lot of substance abuse when I was younger, and my body took a lot of bashing. It took a lot of burden. I lifted a lot of weights that I shouldn't be lifting, and surgeries and all this sort of stuff. So now, same as like when you have kids. I'm not going to say having kids is like the same as taking drugs, but it becomes something that takes a large amount of
result will kill you.
It takes a lot of capacity from your life, and just working harder, isn't going to cut it. You can't just burn the proverbial candle at both ends. You can't just force yourself through. And the same with parents. You just get angrier and shout louder and push harder. It's going to break you and something else around you. And it's the similar, like with my training now. I can't lift the weights I used to lift. I need to get smarter. I need to understand my body. I need to get more efficient with my time, with my nutrition, or I could just write it off. But with anything, and you're the same now, because first it was just mechanic, then it was mechanic EMT, then it was EMT fire department, and then we'll get onto it, the family came along and the coffee company came along, and then all of a sudden you're atop this growing social media beast basically, and time is the irredeemable asset. Time is the one thing you're not getting any more of. So what sort of things have you implemented in your life to try and help you work smarter rather than working harder? Because I know you've made references to mental health before about how working harder has not worked for you. If you could speak to that, please.
No. Again, moderation. I understand. Like, I used to work out for 2.5 hours a day. I can't do that anymore. Like, I can't stretch that long. I got other things in my life going on. So I try to do at a minimum 30 minutes a day, 3 to 4 days a week. That's just what I try to do, and it works for me. My body is adapted. It works. I get really intense workouts for that amount of time. For mental health stuff, I've accepted the normal plane and emotions of life. If I am sad, why am I sad? Let me sit for 2 seconds and say, all right, why am I sad? Like, oh man, I wasn't able to get what I wanted for this, so on and so forth. I didn't get that promotion that I wanted. And feel the normal emotions and not blame myself for feeling sad, So, like, I think understanding moderation, obviously healthy balances between physical fitness and mental health. If I need to talk to a therapist, then I go to a therapist. If I need to cry at a sad part of a movie, I cry at a sad part of a movie. Like, people are very comfortable with extreme happiness and extreme sadness. They're not, or anger. I'm sorry. So anger or happiness. That's all they're comfortable with. I'm okay being super pissed or being super happy. They're not okay, like, in between. Vulnerability.
And that's where most people spend the majority of their time, is that massive gray area in the middle. You said a great thing there, and I just want to capture it before I forget it, about feeling a certain thing. And I read a book, The Untethered Soul, I think it was called. Fantastic book, if you get a chance to read it. And it speaks a lot about the way that we word a feeling is wonderful, because it shows a sincere, objective detachment from the thing. For example, you said there, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling happy, or I'm feeling angry. The fact that you can state the thing would suggest, therefore, you are not the thing, because there becomes a certain subject-object relationship in that I'm feeling anger. And like you said, that why am I feeling anger? Because it's up to you whether or not you want to embrace and play with it, treating it like traffic. When you're standing by the side of a road and you see traffic coming, when you start feeling angry. For example, I consistently interrupt Jason while we're on a podcast. Jason starts to get a little bit angry, but he can feel it. Do you know what I mean? He can feel it starting to emerge. He's like, this dude keeps interrupting me. I'm going to get pissed off for this in a minute. Do you know? But you see the feeling begin. Same with arousal, or same with excitement, or anger. We start to feel it. We're like, that's annoying me. That person's doing that thing, and it starts to grow and grow and grow until anger is upon us. Anger has arrived. Yeah. But it's entirely up to you whether or not you want to step into the road and play chicken with the car. Yeah. You can just see it and go, wow, I really, really am angry right now. Why am I angry? And am I going to choose to dance with this bull, or can I observe it and go, okay, I have given that power. I am the fuel that's fueling the proverbial fire, and it's up to me whether or not. You seem to have a great self-awareness in that. Have you always had that sort of self-awareness, or has that developed over time?
Absolutely.
It literally just started this morning.
Yeah. I'm adapting at the moment. So, like, there's two things, like the two A's of life, right? Acceptance and adaptation. That's kind of like you have those choices. Like, you can choose to fight it. You can choose to every single time you pull into traffic. And again, you're going to have off days. You're going to have days when you're already at the top and you hit that traffic. You're like, and then you run out of the car. Like, but if you can take the time to pull up, if you pull up and you have that moment where you're like, oh, why? And you take 2 seconds to go, all right, take a breath and say, I have the choice here. I can just accept this. Nothing is going to change here. Me yelling and screaming and getting mad and raising my blood pressure and put my risk in, having a freaking heart attack. And then I'm in my own area's response area, so I may get my own guys running on me. Like you can have that choice, right? And then accept and adapt. All right, well, what can I do now? Oh, there's a podcast that one dude that I like. Oh, let me put that on and listen. Like your choice. But that's the difference, again, like between the person that just lets their own emotions run themselves, which that you should never do that. But if I am feeling upset about something and be like, God, man, I'm really pissed off about this. Like you chart it for 2 seconds, write your, and then you move on. Like, there's people that constantly let their own emotions rule themselves instead of just addressing it, being like, dude, this really pisses me off, man. Nothing I can do about it.
You know what?
Those types will make it through life.
I hear a lot about the emergency services. I hear a real comparison there, or a real familiarity. That I think of this when I used to be a lifeguard. I used to do lifeguard, and someone said to me, my instructor, the only difference between you, Pete, and the person drowning is the mindset in which you enter the water, because you're both going into a scary place. And I carried that into the job with me. Do you see that at all? Because, for example, you turn up at a raging fire, you turn up an EMT, and someone's arms hanging out the car, and that happens. Someone's attempted suicide, or they're hanging or something like that. There's people in that experience who don't even know the person. They don't even know the person. Yeah. Obviously, you can understand for people that have an emotional relationship with that person, but there's members of the public that don't even know them, and they are hysterical. You're in the same situation. Is it about, for you, where your focus lies, or what you believe your purpose is in that environment? How have you dealt with traumatic incidents, and how you've composed yourself?
There was a saying when I was in fire school. I don't know if you guys say it there, but the saying is, when you arrive on scene, remember, that's not your address above the door. Like that's like this. This is not me personally getting involved. And some people are like, wow, you disconnected, or you're not human. Like, no, you're 100% right. If I pull up on scene and I'm like, oh my God, he's dying, then everyone's gonna be like, that guy's freaking out. This guy's gonna die. Like, we can't freak out. We have to remain calm. We need to be able to disconnect from the service just so we can understand. I have always said to people when they're brand new, it doesn't happen to me now. I mean, I still get worked up depending on what kind of call it is. But, if it's something I've never ran on before, something like that. But, I always tell new recruits, because I teach CPR a lot, stuff like that. Listen, when you get there, if you feel yourself freaking out, you don't have to close your eyes, but just take 2 seconds. Take one deep breath and then let it out, bro. Your mind will reset. You can actually stop for a second. Me, I'm a senior medic on most calls. If we're on a big incident, what I like to do is let all the new guys go on there and start treating. And I step back and I watch. And I watch for a good 15 seconds and just let everyone start to treat the patient. And then I can make my decisions on what I think we need to do further. Because stepping out of the situation can most of the time allow you to not be in that chaotic bubble and genuinely make the appropriate decisions.
You can't see the picture when you're in the frame. 100%. You need to step back to have that mental and obviously physical detachment from that distancing to get a true perspective on what factors are involved here. I love that. I think that's golden advice. I wanted to echo back briefly and just sort of close the loop on the mental health aspect, because I saw a really powerful video from yourself some time ago, and it really took me back, because it's something I've done a lot of in my private world where I coach people, but also as a mental health first year in the fire department, fire service over here. You've had some closer experiences should we say, with trying to adapt a coping mechanism to both your own challenges, but even your wider surrounding family. Could you speak to that, please?
Yeah, there's been suicide a lot in my life, just from like coworkers, family, friends. The one video that I spoke about was my dad's best friend killed himself. Now, further investigation found out that it is possible that he was taking a medication that was known to make people do that for depression. But it was a very unfortunate event, man, because I saw his kids. His kids were very young, and I just saw his kids struggle with that, man. And again, it could have been the medications, but people who were on medications, it was just their own decision in life. Suicide sucks, man. But I get it. I get it because at the lowest, the low of my low, when I was truly depressed and I could not figure out how to get out of my own head, I envisioned putting a gun in my mouth, blowing the back of my head off, and I felt relief from that thought process. And I was like, oh, buddy, like, that's not okay. Yeah. So I went and seeked help, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, it wasn't this huge thing. People have attached mental health with this tree-hugging, not manly, not strong thought process, which is absolutely insane, because they always like to base it on people prior to, or people from generations ago. You don't know what cavemen were doing, or what people were doing when they were They could have been going to their local shaman and talking to him about what was going on. Like, I killed this tiger and he almost killed me and it was horrible, man. It's really traumatic. The shaman's like, it's fine. It happened to Michael like 6 months ago. Who knows? Who are you to base that on? The fact is that people who create true mental health peace, and I'm not saying that it remains that way, but understanding that mental health is something you work on just like your physical health. People who find that, you see are the happiest, man. They are the absolute happiest, because they just understand, like, yins and yangs and pendulums are a normal part of life. 100%. And if you can just accept both sides, dude, you're going to have shitty days, man. But your happy days will far outweigh your shitty days.
Yeah. 100%. I have days where I can still be enormously productive, and I don't just mean busy, I mean productive, but I'm just I don't allow myself to get the win. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, that was great. Episode with Jason was great. I was like, oh, babe, that was amazing. I'll be like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, I don't know what it's about me. Sometimes I have those moments of manicness, and then sometimes that's where I escape to the gym. Do you know what I mean? I'll put a song on repeat, or I'll, put my audiobook on or something like that. And that's been sustainable for me. But you're a very passionate guy. You're quite intense. Has that ever been pointed out to be something that you should deal with, something you should sort? And the reason I ask is because I've certainly had it myself. Your partner, she obviously deals with people with addiction and stuff like that. I'm an addict, 100%. I just changed the addiction. I've changed what I'm addicted to. I'm aware that it's a powerful energy, but it's like a box of fireworks. If we set a box of fireworks off in this room, we're going to burn the house down. But if we take it outside and point it at the moon, it might be amazing. We could send a rocket into space, and just being aware of that power, because you're an intense, powerful dude. How have you funneled that into productive things? And has there ever been a time when it's, like trying to push a balloon down underwater, has it ever popped out in the wrong direction and hurt you, or hurt somebody close to you?
I mean, I have a very addictive personality. My whole family does. Like, it's just the way we are. We're passionate. When we find things that we're passionate about, we want to be in it. Like, let's go, so on and so forth. But, what I've had to learn in life is that I'm very passionate about things. But when I lose passion for it, then I don't want to do it anymore. And that's something I've had to work on. Had to say, like, all right, I'm not as passionate as I was 2 days ago, but let's continue moving forward. Like, let's we're not just going to stop because we're not super excited about it today. I may be super excited about it again, So, I think that teaching myself moderation has been a difficult thing. But I've learned it for the most part. But yeah, I know I have an addictive personality. During COVID, we were inside all the time. And my fiance and I would start hanging out, and we would hang out here, and we would be watching a movie, or I'd be writing a script. I'm like, let me have a whiskey. And I would have a whiskey. And then I would be like, I've got some friends over. Let me have another one. And then it started being, besides when I have my daughter, it would be like I was having a drink 3 days a week, 4 days a week, depending on what's going on. And I started to develop a habit from that. And it year or year and a half for me to develop that habit, but I started to develop a habit and I noticed it. I was like,
there you are. I see you. I see you.
Yeah. I know it's I see you coming for me.
Yeah, just comes and sit next to you and goes, hey, I'm here now. And you're like, oh yeah, I see you. I see you. You stay there. You stay there. It is. Is there anything about having multiple projects ongoing as well? Because I hear, again, a lot of that in myself where I'll be fanatical about something. You know, I'll spend 2 or 3 days podcasting with people in different countries, and then I'll be like, nah. Do you know what I mean? And then I can change hats, and we've got a pizza business, and we've got a caravan thing, and then obviously I've got 4 days off from the fire service, and then I get to go back to shift, and it's like you get to change hats. I feel like if I did only one thing, I would break it or I would break me. One or the two. Yeah. Something's going to get broken.
Variety is normal. You should have variety, right? You should have on the financial side, they say like the average millionaire has their hand in 7 pots. Like, you need variety. I enjoy going to work. I enjoy, there was a guy that talked about mental health or just being a human. And he's like, I wake up every day and then I go immediately to the couch, and then I watch TV or I mess around on my phone. If I have a problem thinking, first thing I do is I get up in the morning and I go for a walk. Or if I'm halfway through the day and I can't get my mind right, writing a book, I get up and I go through a walk. And he says, that movement, that smells and the sights and the warmth of the sun and just getting to move around, that actually gets me thinking a little bit better. Cognitively, it helps me think better. And
before we came on here, I went upstairs, and I've started doing this before podcasts because we're like staying inside, so I can't do necessarily the things I would used to do. We've got a ping pong room upstairs. And I go upstairs before this, and we've got big windows on one side, and the sun's coming in, and I literally just play ping pong for like 5 minutes on my own, and that is the same. It allows me to change gears. It allows my mind to be a little bit adaptive. It flexes back and forth, changes gears, and then I come down ready to engage with yourself. Changing gears like that, I think I love what you say there. That's great.
If something's not working, change it.
100%. I wanted to ask you about the balance of family and life, because you said about your daughter there, you've referenced her a few times. That it can be a barrier for some people trying to get into the fire department, or even just the emergency services in general, because they think like, oh, well, I've not got kids yet, and if I do, it's going to be impossible because long shifts, nights, this, that. Your daughter's 5, did you say now 5? How has that been? Because you'd have been in for 8 years, 7 years, 8 years when she was born. How have you adapted to that? Has it been an easy transition? And how do you keep the balance?
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all.
You're not selling it to me. I mean, it wasn't a car crash,
Yeah. No, like, it was, I have a very unique situation because my daughter was 3 months and I got a divorce. And so it was interesting. But I will say this, I learned a lot, and I gained a lot of respect for stay-at-home moms, because on my days off, or for one of my days off, I would have my daughter. And, at the time she was 4 months old, or 3 months old. And man, that is a journey, dude. Like having to do the formula and all this stuff, and waking up multiple times in the night, So I have a huge respect for stay-at-home moms. So it was definitely interesting. It always kept me on my feet. A lot of anxiety. I don't want to screw things up. But it's like anything. You'll adapt. It takes time. It's uncomfortable. Adaptation is super uncomfortable. It always is. But no one has ever been put in a perfect bubble. The Matrix talks about that. I don't know how many people. The second Matrix talked about it. I don't know if you caught that. They said the first Matrix that we created was perfect. Everything was perfect. And they said, and it bombed, man. Like humans didn't want anything to do with it.
It completely broke. Yeah, Agent Smith was talking about it, wasn't he? And he was like, we needed those variations. We needed, because this speaks to the human need of, we need guarantees in life, but we also like to have variation. We like things to be familiar, but we also like risk. It's like the same reason you watch a film that you've already seen before, because you like familiarity, but you also like to go on a roller coaster, even though it's within your realm of control, but you don't really know what's going to happen. But you kind of know what's going to happen, but you're not quite sure. That's why we try new foods. We want that freshness, but we don't want it to be too perfect. We just think we do, but we don't really.
Well, I got to tell you, every time I walk into a door, every time I open up a door, it's the same thing. Every single time. Eventually, you're going to get bored. Like, what's the fun in that? Now, if I open up the door and there was a cannon on the other side and it blew me 330 feet the other way, awesome! Like, will it be there tomorrow? You have to have variety. You have to have it. I mean, it's normal. Like, the brain wants to adapt. The brain wants to be able to process new things, and it's healthy. healthy for you to go. It's healthy for you to be proved wrong every once in a while. Yeah, I think it's true. The two things I've learned in life is that it's healthy to have adaptation, but it's also the happiest people I've ever seen in the world are the people that they're just floating, dude. They're just on a boat, man, and like it doesn't. They're not trying to figure out why pi equals pi. They don't care. Like. Why does the sun? Why do we go around? Like, who cares? Like, we just are, man. We get the happiest people. Like, it's
good. Some people really hate them. They really struggle with it. But I love what you're saying there about giving yourself that bit of variety, because if things are too consistent, like you say, your mind just switches off. We need to flex that grey matter, because I see this in the fire service, because ultimately I feel like as humans, we're kind of like master problem solvers. We've got a really developed, prefrontal cortex, and we like to solve problems. But if you don't, and this is where I think a lot of mental health comes from as well, if you don't give your mind problems to solve, if you don't give your body problems to solve, it will atrophy. And also your mind will find a problem. If you don't give it something to solve, it will find a problem. People say, you make a mountain out of a molehill, or, you're making a big deal out of something. Things grow because you're not feeding that appetite a little bit of difference, a little bit of adaptation, a little bit of problem solving. Not major problem solving. You haven't got to solve cancer if you haven't got an appetite for it, but give yourself a little bit of variation. Let the margins widen a little bit in your life. Otherwise, it is going to be challenging. And I feel that's where some of these aspects of mental health can really start to occur for people.
Absolutely.
Quick fire round. Some essential characteristics needed to be a firefighter. Hit me. What's your top few?
You need to be able to adapt to anything that's going on around you. You need to be caring and compassionate for the people that you're going to be dealing with. You need to be able to stay calm in the most epic of situations, no matter what is happening around you. You need to be able to stay focused. I've always loved watching people where they're doing training. They'll have people screaming at them from both sides. Yeah. My kid, oh my God. And you need to be able to not just run into the building, be able to go, all right, this may not be the best entrance, or maybe we need to knock this fire down before we go in first, and so on and so forth. So.
Yeah, I think that's something we lose in a little bit if we're not careful. They don't like us screaming and shouting at recruits anymore. They think it's a little bit bullying, and it's a bit too intimidating. Because I'm a big guy, and people are like, oh no, Pete, you can't shout at people because that's intimidating. And I'm like,
I don't agree with that.
It's ridiculous. You've got to find a way to simulate that stress. Otherwise, when they'll just fall to pieces in the instant ground, and you'll have failed them. You'll fail them because they won't be prepared, because you weren't willing to do the uncomfortable thing to get them prepared. What's the proudest moment in the job, my man? I know it's 13 years. Hit me with, if you've got one in your mind, what was the most proudest part that says to you about the job you do?
Honestly, the proudest moment I've ever had was we pulled up on a fire blowing out the windows, man. They said that there was kids trapped inside. It should have been a defensive attack. We were like, screw that. They said there's kids in there. And we went up there, blew through the windows, everything, and found a 1-month-old trapped underneath the door, and actually saved the kid's life. Wow. And it was like passing this kid out the window was insane. It was every variant of emotion. I think I cried. Well, I was like, oh no! And I passed it out, and they were like, it's alive! I'm like, it's alive!
Oh yeah, totally. We had a new recruit once bring out a pet, and they were like, dude, there's a cat, and they brought the cat out, and it was a fake cat. It was one of them plastic cats, and it was in a basket, and somebody just had it as like an ornament, but it looked real. And he brought it out, and he was like, it was like this, and the owner just grabbed it and threw it on the driveway, and then it just bounced like plastic. And he got in there, and he thought he'd made his first ever live rescue. He was like, dude, I've got the cat. I've got your cat. She's like, I haven't got a cat. It's just plastic.
Have you seen Backdraft?
Yes.
That's when he pulled the mannequin out. I got one.
I want to wrap it up, my man. I've really enjoyed our chat today, and hopefully we'll find some time when the pandemic comes to a close, and you can tell me that the coffee company's not going to sack you for some crazy stunts with some of the videos, and tell us about the next big victories that we're going for. But I wanted to close out because we've both seen the last 18 months of the pandemic from dual view of an operational personnel, and also members of our family have been stuck inside. So we've kind of got both sides of the coin. You have a tremendous ability to share your words and articulate through the videos that you do. What is the big message? If you had a proverbial billboard in the sky that billions of people could see, and you thought just one message, it didn't even have to be one from you, a phrase or something that speaks to you that you think people would really need to hear right now to just help them?
Yeah, I think in general, man, it is that whether you believe in destiny or God or whatever you want to believe in, man, that life is exactly what you choose to make it. So, the pandemic has been insane. All of this has been insane. Every crazy moment that's ever happened in your life, you make the ultimate decision on whether or not you can bring positives out of it or not. And you know what? No matter what you're going through, no matter what is happening in your life, no matter what call you've been on, it's very rare that you're the only person that's ever experienced that. 100%. So reach out to your brothers and sisters, man. We're always here, and we're always willing to share our own stories.
It is, man. Stuff like that, those things, it's a zero-sum game. Everybody is going through the same stuff. You've got to take that perception. What are you going to make of it? What decision are you going to make? Is this the beginning or is it the end? It's entirely up to you.
And when it comes to our brothers and sisters that work with us, man, I heard a quote the other day. I know that people have heard of this, and I love it, dude. I thought it was so powerful. I heard it on Star Trek, by the way. But he said, my grandma always said, you can't break a stick when it's in a bundle. And I'm like, man, that's it.
I haven't heard that. I'm stealing that. That's going on a post.
I love that,
so
dude.
So true. That is so damn true. God, I love that.
Yeah.
Jay, thank you so much for taking time out of, I know what is a very busy and not chaotic, but intentionally busy and productive life. The best of luck with the rest of the pandemic, mate. Please send my love to the little one and also to the good fiance. I'll be looking forward to that coffee. I'm gonna go and get my hold of some more now. Send my love to them. Look after yourself, and I look forward to speaking with you soon, brother.
You too, brother. Be safe, man.
Take care, man. Bye-bye. Hey gang, well, how about them apples? Jason Patton on the Firefighters podcast. Absolute privilege to have him. I could have spoke to him for another 6 hours. It may have been boring for you at some point in time, but we'd have had a scream. Nah, I'm sure you'd have loved it. Jason is such an interesting guy. There's so many things we didn't get a chance to talk about. I know Jason and I are going to reconnect when this pandemic lifts, but what a guy. Such a great self-awareness, such a great gregariousness. I mean, he is a party in one. Just plug him in, point him in the right direction and press play. And a really interesting, loving family man as well. From business to barbells, from mechanic to mental health, from fitness to firefighting, and from the funny to the downright conversational filth. I know there was a little bit of right language in there, but I'm hoping our listeners will be able to forgive us. There was so much content there for people to take away. There was so many great, lovely, valuable life lessons. It was a tough one to edit because I wanted to keep so much of that in there, and I know people will hear the passion that comes through from Jason. It was an absolute privilege to have him take time out of his busy life. A big thanks goes to his fiancée as well for lending him to me for that short period of time. It was gratefully received. All of the links and all of the details, the things we discussed today, will be in the show notes, so have a look below. Be sure to jump on the mailing list so you hear about new episodes as soon as they come out. And also, there's the odd little treat comes out as well. It might be a nugget of information, or it might be a little gift from us. So jump on the mailing list. It's the first link in the show notes. More important than any of that, look after yourself, develop each other, and hopefully today that's come in the form of this podcast. Hopefully you walk away a better person than you arrived. Hopefully you have an idea that you can go away and implement. And of course, as always, more importantly than me, more importantly than Jason, I thank you for taking time out of your busy life to be here with me, with Jason, to share this word, to share the message, to light the torch, to fly the flag, to keep the dream alive. Look after yourself, look after your family, look after your emergency services. And we will see you soon, right back here on the Firefighters podcast.